Be aware of who your advocates are. Be aware of the difference between the Manosphere community and the men's rights community. That is the focus of today's video, and I'm going to use primarily Andrew Tate, but also just pearly things to drive my point home. Now, this video is not sponsored by the Tin Men, but it could not have happened without him and his page, so therefore, this video is brought to you by the Tin Men. If you want to help a hardworking father bring his daughter to the Canadian Skating Nationals, here's how you can do so. There's more information down in the description. In this video, I'm going to be primarily focusing on Andrew Tate because Just Pearly Things made the decision to block me, not really sure why, so therefore I don't consume much of her content. However, I am going to draw similarities and drive home to you guys two main points. Number one, Andrew Tate and Just Pearly Things do not care about you. And number two, the Manosphere community draws way too many similarities with radical feminists. The reason why it's so important to understand the strong difference between these two communities is so that these lines do not get blurred. Andrew Tate and Just Pearly Things are what I would describe as the Manosphere. The Manosphere is defined as a collection of websites, blogs, and online forums promoting masculinity, misogyny, and opposition to feminism. Communities with the Manosphere include men's rights advocates, incels, men going their own way, pickup artists, and fathers' rights groups. Now, although I do not agree entirely with this definition, there are some truths to it. However, do you see why it is so important for us to draw this line in the sand and know who our advocates are? Because having masculinity, men's rights advocates, men going their own way, and fathers' rights being lumped in with misogyny, anti-feminism, incels, and pickup artists is a huge issue. That's a problem, because we are not the same. The men's rights movement, however, is defined as a branch of the men's movement. The MRM, in particular, consists of a variety of groups and individuals who focus on general social issues and specific government services which advertently impact, or in some cases, structurally discriminate against men and boys. Andrew Tate and Just Pearly Things are not men's rights advocates, and I'm going to primarily focus on Andrew Tate. However, one thing I can say for certain is that they are not men's rights advocates. I'm seeing more and more people comparing Andrew Tate and Just Pearly Things as some sort of men's rights icons, but the reality is that they're not part of the men's rights movements, and specifically Andrew Tate, a lot of men's rights communities really dislike him. The evidence is very clear that these two are not men's rights advocates because let me ask you, do you know their stances on any of these topics? These are very popular men's rights topics: incarceration, male disposability, military conscription, police brutality, drug addiction, suicide, divorce, rape, entrapment, education, false allegations, mental health, prison amendment, anti-dowry laws, homelessness, domestic abuse, fathers' rights, contraception, child custody, alimony, and men's mental health. What are Andrew Tate and Just Pearly Things' stances on these things? Have you ever heard them specifically talk about it? And I'm going to hold myself to the same account. Let me know in the comments below. Do you know my stances on these topics? And if you don't, maybe I'm not a good men's rights advocate. This criticism is open to absolutely everybody out there, so please let me know in the comments. Do you wholeheartedly know my stance on these issues? Tate doesn't represent any serious or important issues related to the men's rights movement. Aside from giving the Manosphere a bad name, he actually exploits men and has made statements contrary to egalitarian values. There's no disputing that Andrew Tate is a misogynist. Aside from the statements claiming women are inferior to men, he has openly identified as one. The problem for men's rights is, in this regard, it allows competitors, which you can already find all over the internet, to connect misogyny not only with the men's rights movement and Manosphere, but even masculinity in general, which is absolutely insane. There is nothing wrong with masculinity. It should be celebrated. Personally, I would describe Andrew Tate as more of a motivational speaker at best, because there are positives between him as well as just pearly things, let's be honest. What matters is that Andrew Tate has now left a massive vacuum that can become a positive space for men and boys, one that doesn't place their entire value on them becoming billionaire playboys, but also a space that doesn't call them predatory, pathetic, or toxic either. A new space actually is created that listens to men, one that sees their unique value and worth as men and boys, rather than making them evil, monolithic oppressors and class. We can fill the vacuum with meaningful, inclusive, and unapologetic conversations. Just Pearly Things and Andrew Tate have created a space where men and boys can speak openly about their views on masculinity and their inherent value as men. However, we need to make sure that we draw a very distinct line between people like Andrew Tate and Just Pearly Things and men's rights advocates, because we don't want this manosphere concept to corrupt genuine advocacy, important advocacy for men and boys. People like Andrew Tate and radical feminists are 100% one and the same. There's a lot of hypocrisy on both sides, and they both play off of this concept that we don't have control over ourselves. Andrew Tate is all about escaping the matrix, and feminists are all about smashing the patriarchy. Both are very simple, if even, solutions to a very big problem. Am I the only one who has noticed that Andrew Tate's talk of the matrix is very eerily similar to radical feminist discussion of smash the patriarchy? Both seem to describe some kind of ominous grand narrative of global control and domination. Now, the issue with both of these ideologies is that it's very vaguely formulated and impossible to measure. Although it sounds very dangerous and seductive, the matrix and the patriarchy are both extremely effective in stoking division and causing outrage. But don't worry, radical feminists and Andrew Tate both have a solution to this just for you. But you have to pay for it. Now, what makes this talk of the matrix and radical feminism so eerily similar is the fact that they both interestingly touch on concepts that's called the locus of control. A locus of control describes to what extent a person feels their destiny is controlled by themselves or external forces. External locus of control can be seen in comments like, "The matrix controls you," "I'm oppressed," "They sent their agents," "The patriarchy got me." It's this passive idea of things happen to me. Radical feminism and the manosphere is one and the same in the way that they both put men in these boxes, but then blame men for it when it goes wrong. That is the locus of control, and as you can kind of see, they're both meaningless. The problem with the patriarchy theory is that it's incredibly meaningless, and people are endlessly reopening their dictionaries to share personal and new and improved, but yet no less vague definitions. Using such a broad and clumsy theory such as the matrix and smashing the patriarchy to delicately fix complex social issues is like fixing a broken watch with a blundering sledgehammer. When talking about the patriarchy, discussions of gender pay gaps never seem to talk about job choices, hours worked, or parental leave. Advocacy against violent crime never covers fatherlessness, antisociality, or childhood trauma. But smash the patriarchy, right? Fuck the solutions. The root of the problems. Go get that sledgehammer! The problem with the manosphere and radical feminists is that they both preach this ideology of what it means to be a man, effectively putting men in what's called the man box. They both say that you need to provide, be tough, be strong, be successful, compete, be powerful, be resilient, hide emotions, be disposable, and work hard. These are just some of the very rigid social and cultural expectations that are placed on men just because they're men. Men have been challenging over the last few generations the man box and have been trying to step out of it. Whilst this progress is being made, I fear that the manosphere and radical feminist community are ruining this for men and pushing it into a really dangerous definition. So although the manosphere really pushes and promotes men to be this, It's often twisted and then used against men by radical feminists. If you're heroic and you go fight the wars, you are oppressive. If you're tough, you're perceived as toxic. You're disposable through war and through hard jobs, but yet that means you're privileged. If you're strong, you're dangerous. If you're invincible, then you're entitled. And if you're emotionless or have emotions, either or, you're gonna be called fragile. We have the Manosphere community literally promoting that you have to be strong. Well, what happens if you're a man that was just born with a genetic condition where you can't grow a lot of muscle? You're naturally skinny. What about the men who go and fight the wars, come home injured, and they no longer can work out anymore? They can't do tough jobs. Are they no longer masculine? What about the father who worked his whole life and then his body started breaking down? He couldn't do as much anymore, couldn't provide for his family. Is he still masculine? The thing is, the issue with this community is that it leaves so much space to discriminate against the very men that we are supposed to protect. If we know that gendered attitudes and expectations hurt women and girls, such as they should be quiet, small, submissive, nurturing, kind, and pretty, then why do we not acknowledge that expecting men to be strong, unfeeling, loud, dominant, powerful, aggressive, and heroic, and we call that internalized misandry? No, just kidding. It's called toxic masculinity. Then why do these communities promote these attributes towards men? The radical feminist community says that men are all of these negative things, but then turn around and expect a man to open the doors, be strong, work out, pay all her bills. And the Manosphere community promotes the exact same thing. You need to make a lot of money, you need to be strong, you need to be emotionless, you need to be an alpha. Okay. So you want to be an alpha male. Andrew Tate teaches you to do that, and that's empowering, that's good for you. Except for the fact that Andrew Tate and the majority of the people who preach about alpha males have absolutely no idea what actually entails in that. This is a term DeWalt claims has been mischaracterized online. He writes, "You should not call a bully an alpha male. Someone who is big and strong and intimidates and insults everyone is not necessarily an alpha male. An alpha male has all sorts of qualities. Alpha males are impressive with their displays of strength and good health, but they are also good with children and extraordinarily generous. Alpha males are among the most stressed of their group. You may think that being an alpha male is nice and dandy and wonderful, but it's actually very stressful, and we demonstrate that psychologically. An alpha male has two sorts of obligations. One is to keep the peace, and the other one is the consoler in chief. Alpha males show high empathy for others. In fact, they are the most empathetic of the group. They eat last, they put the weak first, they care for the disabled, something that the Manosphere does not encourage you to do. The Manosphere encourages you to provide, be tough, strong, successful, compete, powerful, resilient, hide your emotions, be disposable, and work hard. The issue is striving to be all of these things, and the reason why men like Andrew Tate do not actually give a shit about you is because all of these things are later twisted and used against you. It does not promote individuality, it promotes the man box, which in return you're going to be looked at as a threat, an oppressor, privileged, fragile, entitled, toxic, trash. These are just more boxes that radical feminists and the Manosphere work together to put men in, therefore causing more divide. I mean, radical feminists do this the best. They criticize men, put them down, tell them that they're trash, but yet only really acknowledge them or label them when they're at their very worst. Men are directly and even indirectly made responsible for things way outside of their control, whereas women are regarded as having less responsibility to their actions and are seen as forced by factors outside of themselves. What both of these communities do so well is pin men and women against each other. Both of these ideologies are not men's rights advocacy because it places men in a vulnerable place where they are then in return fucking blamed for everything. And Andrew Tate, just like radical feminists, do blame you for everything. If a man truly cared about you, would he write this tweet on Christmas? You are poor. You are unimportant. Men do not fear you. Your woman disagrees with you. Your lives are shit. If I was forced to endure a year of your life, it would be the worst level of depression imaginable. That was on Christmas, when a lot of fathers decide to, I'm not trying to be funny about it. It's just like YouTube will censor me. It was just really disheartening. Saying something so cold to somebody such as you are poor, you are unimportant, you are pathetic, is blaming them. If you are a man and you live in a world where society blames you for absolutely everything, and I do mean everything, it's kind of hard to keep track of at this point, why would you call somebody your advocate who will say things like that to you, who will put you in a position where you are, again, just valued by what you can do, what you can provide, how mean and how alpha you are, when we now know that that's the antithesis of, number one, what it means to be an alpha, and number two, of what the men's rights movement is trying to do to actually help men. So are people like Andrew Tate and Just Pearly Things all bad? No, absolutely not. But I would be willing to bet that you don't know their stances on real men's rights issues. And in fact, I would be willing to bet that they promote ideologies that actually hurt men. Do they promote the idea that men should be the sole providers? Because there are a lot of fathers out there right now fighting for their children against judges who feel the exact same way, feel that the mothers should have primary custody because it's just not a father's role. When in reality, through generations, we see that men do want to spend time with their children. And I'm not saying that conservative values are negative. I don't think that they are. But when you are so conservative that you are inherently creating a bias against the other gender, such as women need to be virgins, but men need to put more notches in their belt, nor is it helpful for liberals to convince women to go off their birth control, go sleep around, have as many drinks as you want, and end up being a single mother. You're fine. It's not helpful. Both Just Pearly Things and Andrew Tate have ideas and conversations that are important, conducive, correct even, but it's really important that you make the distinction between the manosphere and the men's rights community. It's important for the men that we advocate for, because at the end of the day, if somebody is placing you in a box and telling you that you have to do this, you have to do that, just to be a respectable man, that person does not care about you. Consume the content, enjoy it even, but make sure that you're using contrast thinking and know who your advocates are. Thank you.
Oh, baby, no, it don't gotta be so. Oh, baby, no, it be okay.